Welcome. This is the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show. Today is June 2nd, 2022. This is our 104th episode. My name is Andy Zee. I'm the host of the show, coming to you from Los Angeles, California. Revolution, nothing less. We mean it. I don't care whether you are 14, 44, or 94 years old. Look out at the world and what do you see? Children slaughtered. 10 years old, whole lives in front of them cowering under their desks, texting desperately for help while self-centered pigs cower and point their guns at their parents, desperate to save the children. Parents willing to act and risk all for their children. But these cowering pigs, a mirror of the society, the system in this country, cowardly, looking out for themselves with no heart for the people, for the children, or for their parents. Our website, revcom.us, wrote, quote, contrasts the police paralysis in Uvalde with how over and over again police instantly, almost instinctively, open fire on defenseless Black, brown, and Native American people, even children, end quote. 8-year-old Fontability. 13-year-old Adam Toledo. 7-year-old Ayanna Stanley Jones, and 12-year-old Tamir Rice, who was playing with a toy gun on an empty playground, murdered by police less than 2 seconds after they arrived on the scene. Revcom.us wrote, what this stark contrast illustrates is the profound reality of what Avakian has said.
This is a big part of the overall role of the police, which, as I said in Basics 124, is not to serve and protect the people. It is to serve and protect the system that rules over the people, to enforce the relations of exploitation and oppression, the conditions of poverty, misery, and degradation into which the system has cast people and is determined to keep people in. The law and order the police are about, with all their brutality and murder, is the law and order that enforces all this oppression and madness.
Don't push the faces of the children of Uvalde from your mind just yet. Don't blot out the police holding the guns at the parents while their kids bled out. No, as agonizing, as sick as this spectacle was, as depraved as the 18-year-old gunman was, as predictable as the cover-up of the police and the media has been, as perverse as the politicians are with their prayers, as cruelly demented as the fascist Republicans are in calling for turning schools into armed camps, and as feckless as the Democrats are in throwing up their hands, all this is but a fitting concentration of America. Everywhere you turn, the lookout for number one.
Me.
The brutal and deadly force used to further the interests of the capitalist imperialist system. The disregard for life and the planet in pursuit of profit. The venality and criminality slathered over with the salve of holiness meant to pacify the people.
The Lord is near to the brokenhearted.
The jingoism and flag waving, a mask to cover up centuries of genocide, white supremacy, and patriarchy. This is America. Abiodun, a member of the Last Poets, who pioneered what would become rap and later hip-hop, spit this poem at a program at Harlem Stage to debut Bob Avakian's book Basics, the Handbook for Revolution.
America's a terrorist, killing the natives of the land. Killing and stealing has always been America's master plan. To control the earth and everything on it, to divide and conquer is all they want.
It is the 19 children and 2 adults in Uvalde. And it is the 11 Black people shopping on a weekend murdered for being Black the week before in Buffalo. It is the 23 million people overwhelmingly poor from third world countries who have become climate refugees displaced by the extreme weather events that are becoming more common and destructive because of global warming. And more and worse, it is 3.5 billion, I said billion people, who face the prospect of where they live becoming parched deserts, uninhabitable, potentially within 50 years. This past week, the latest Environmental Performance Index was released, revealing that almost none of the countries in the world will meet the net zero greenhouse gas emissions target of the Glasgow Climate Pact. No surprise that the U.S. was among the leaders in pollution. This is what America First from Trump and Build Back America from Biden means. There is more. On the RNL show, we have brought out from Avakian how the United States has turned the war in Ukraine into a proxy war with Russia, endangering the whole world with the threat of not just a wider catastrophic war, even World War III, but has increased the danger of a nuclear war with the existential danger to humanity that poses. Then there is the very proximate, looming danger of the U.S. Supreme Court taking away the right of women to abortion. This forced motherhood would be female enslavement, with women's wombs sites of government surveillance and potentially crime scenes. And in the face of all of this, many have lamented in words similar to those of the New York Times opinion writer Michelle Goldberg, who wrote, quote, "Even as people learn the names of all those murdered children, the most common sentiment is not never again, but a bitter acknowledgement that nothing is going to change. America is too sick, too broken. It is perhaps beyond repair," end quote. A follower of the new communism of Avakian and a friend of the revolution made this insightful observation. Quote, "There is a broad feeling now among decent people that something is really wrong in this country, but they don't yet recognize that something is really wrong with this country. As the saying goes, true that. This understanding that something is really wrong with this country is what we bring every week on the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show. Looking at and analyzing all the workings of this system, how all this absolute madness is connected to an economic system and a culture that fragments and isolates people from each other into billions of powerless individuals competing against everyone else in a heartless world of winners and losers, rather than a world we could have of freely cooperating human beings, taking care of each other and of nature. This requires science. What is extraordinary about the RNL show and our website, revcom.us, is that this is where you can learn the breakthrough in the scientific approach to society and to revolution developed by the revolutionary thinker and leader Avakian. I can't today take the time to go into this, but I will say this. Avakian has brought forward the way out of the madness of today. He's developed a method and approach to know and change the world, a strategy to actually prepare for and make a revolution, an analysis that we are living in a rare time where out of the very horrors that are building, there is a unique circumstance where a revolution to emancipate humanity is possible, and he has written a blueprint for a new society in the Constitution for a new socialist republic in North America. This is the shit. You care about the world? You want to change it? This is who and where you go to, and this is the movement you get with. Today's show is going to feature quite a bit about the crucial juncture we are at in the battle for abortion rights. So I want to close this week's commentary with the following from a recent article from Avakian titled "The Crucial Fight for Abortion Rights and Ending All Oppression, Broad Unity and Necessary Struggle." He concludes with this, quote, "In order to finally put an end to all this completely unnecessary suffering, it is necessary to fight against all these different forms of oppression, plunder, and destruction, and fight to put an end to this system, which is the fundamental source and cause of all this, linking together in this way the different streams of struggle and directing them toward the solution, overthrowing this system and bringing it to being a radically different, truly emancipating system, a socialist system, aiming for the ultimate goal of a communist world where all exploitation and oppression will finally be ended everywhere. Right now, there is an urgent need and basis to unite people very broadly from many different political perspectives to rise up in massive and nonviolent but determined, sustained resistance to stop the Supreme Court from ripping away the right to abortion. This is a crucial battle in its own right. It is a concentration of the fight against the oppression of women, and it is an important part of the overall fight for a more just society and world and a future worth living for humanity. Okay, I want to welcome my co-host to the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show, Sunsara Taylor, who's coming to us from New York City, where she's been leading the struggle along with others for Rise Up for Abortion Rights. Sunsara, how are you?
I'm good. Very good to be with you, Andy.
All right, so tell us about last weekend.
Yeah, so last weekend, the RiseUp4AbortionRights.org movement, we pulled together at this critical juncture when the decision from the Supreme Court over whether they're going to rip away women's right to abortion really could come any day. It could come within days or weeks. We pulled together an emergency organizing national Zoom summit. We had about 300 people come participate in workshops and planning, strategizing for the campuses, for students and youth, for disruptive die-ins, for all kinds of ways to take this fight higher. So it was very important, and we really have to make good on stopping the Supreme Court from taking this right away.
Okay, Sunsara, so we want to start with the beginning of your speech at the summit on May 29th.
My name is Sunsara Taylor, and I am a revolutionary. I'm a follower of the revolutionary leader Bob Avakian, who's the architect of the new communism. I am the co-host of the Revolution Nothing Less show on YouTube. And for many years, from that perspective, I have recognized and been fighting that abortion is central to women's lives, and whether women will be treated as full human beings or as incubators, as property of men, as subjugated, lesser than oppressed status. And so this has been a fight I've been in, learned a great deal since the 90s when the first abortion doctor was assassinated. And we in Rise Up for Abortion Rights unite people from many diverse political and ideological perspectives. That's a great strength of ours, from the initiators to all of you, and that we are united around a central demand, which is what I want to zero in on, which is stop the Supreme Court. Stop the Supreme Court from taking away women's fundamental right to abortion. Forced motherhood is female enslavement, and we need abortion on demand and without apology. And this is profoundly important. Right now, we need to understand that the Supreme Court is on track, as all of you, I'm sure, know, to decimate the right to abortion, to take it away, to reverse a constitutional right for the first time in U.S. history, a major assault on the masses of people, on the masses of women and girls, and on justice overall. This is an atrocity, and it must be stopped. It must be stopped because, exactly as I said, forcing women to have children against their will is a form of enslavement. It shatters lives. It forecloses dreams. It forces women and girls to drop out of school, to lose their jobs. It traps women in abuse. It drives them into poverty. And it tells every woman, every part of society, no matter how much privilege she has, and even worse, if she's trapped at the bottom of society and facing multiple barriers, it tells every woman that they are less than fully human in the eyes of the state. And this is something that must not be allowed to happen. And if this happens, it is not the end, it's the beginning. If they are allowed to overturn RoeVWade, they're coming for contraception next. They're not leaving the blue states safe. They are coming for LGBTQ rights. They are coming for the lives of our trans youth. They are coming for interracial marriage. They are accelerating the whole fascist and Christian fascist juggernaut, which has been building and mounting for decades, which is now at the brink of success at the Supreme Court. So we need to draw the line. This must be stopped. And what I want to focus my remarks on, and what we have a mission to accomplish together here today, is that this can be stopped. The attack, yes, the Supreme Court is on track to overturn Roe v. Wade. Yes, that hideous manifesto of misogyny and dark ages thought that was called a draft decision from Samuel Alito is atrocious and makes clear they have a majority if we do not change the political calculus in this country. But it is not a done deal. It is not yet the law. And I want to talk about how we can stop this and what we need to aim, how we need to fight with all we've got to stop it, even in the short time we have. Now, people often say, and I know it's in the chat, and if you can't help yourself and you're going to keep chatting and debating this while I speak, I can't stop you, but I would request that we put a lot of thought into this. I would request that you pause and listen. And then we engage in a discussion and a debate on the basis of having had a common presentation. I'm going to address something very serious that very few people see the basis for in society, but has implications of the lives of millions and millions of women and girls, and justice overall hangs in the balance, which is that we have to fight to stop this decision from becoming law, and how we can. And I want to say this: if we, in our millions, in mass, sustained, determined, unrelenting, not just for a day, unrelenting, nonviolent resistance and protest and acts of defiance, if we make clear in word and deed that we will bring the gears of society to a grinding halt before we accept the overturning of Roe v. Wade, we have a shot at stopping this from becoming law. And I don't say this because I'm naive. I don't think we're going to get inside the hearts and the minds of Clarence Thomas or Samuel Alito or Amy Coney Barrett and win them over. I am not naive that they are very powerful. They are very theocratic. They are very dark ages. And yes, they have built their movement up over decades. They have a cadre of millions of foot soldiers who harass and terrorize women outside every clinic, and they've done it for decades. They have taken over state legislatures. They have captured the federal judiciary from the highest level very significantly on down. I am well aware, and this movement is well aware of the power they have, which is why we have to be determined not to let them get any more power. If they have the force of the state ripping away the legal right to abortion, do not kid yourself that this will be something we can do a workaround and just help all the women who need to and other pregnant people who need to travel. You can do that for a while, and that is righteous, but it will be on shrinking ground, and the fascists will be on the march, which they have been. We have to draw a line and fight to stop it now. It is far harder to win a right back after it has been lost than to save it and defend it while you have it. So I want you to imagine, and these are reality-based imaginations, I want you to imagine the tens of thousands of predominantly furious, heartsick women who came flooding into the streets, but also men, yes, people of different genders, people who came out into the streets after that draft decision was leaked with tears in their eyes and rage in their heart and terror and fear in their bellies, who came out and said no. I want you to imagine all those people coming back into the streets, not for one day and then going home and saying, oh, we vented our frustration, coming back and saying no again and again. I want you to imagine all the 10,000 or so who marched with Rise Up for Abortion Rights and inserted into those protests, and the ones that we led, not just outrage, but the demand, stop the Supreme Court from overturning Roe. Overturn Roe, hell no. All of them and all the thousands, beautiful, young, righteous, thousands of young students, college students, high school students, middle school students who answered the call we put out to walk out of school and shut down their campuses and grind up and gum up business as usual. Hundreds and hundreds of students walking out from schools all across this country. Yes, in New York and California, righteously, but also in Arkansas, Connecticut, Colorado, Texas, all over, big towns, small towns, red, blue, young people who are saying, we will not let you steal our futures. Imagine them coming back and not just sustaining in small numbers of determined youth, but winning, hold the entire schools to walk out, entire campuses, and then also going to other sections of society, these young people, not just coming back themselves, but marching to the hospitals at shift change and challenging the nurses and the doctors and the healthcare workers to join us in wearing green and standing up and gumming up the workings of society. Imagine marching to Broadway when audiences are lining up or the plays are letting out, and challenging and struggling with the actors and the audiences to join us. Imagine this spreading. Imagine all the women, the 1 in 4 women who's gotten an abortion in her life, being aroused to join us in the streets. Imagine if we were going and challenging our beloved artists and public intellectuals and the conscience of society, the voices who carry the conscience of society, to stand with us, and they were. And not just voicing their outrage, as important and as righteous as that is, but joining and saying this must stop. Wearing the green bandana together with us, the symbol, the very powerful symbol that came out of Argentina, where women there went in the streets and did what everybody said was impossible. They went in the streets with fury. They didn't have anybody backing them up, and they kept coming back. And they refused to stop. And they struggled with people to wake up. And they decriminalized abortion in a very profoundly Catholic, patriarchal, highly repressive society. They tore down those anti-abortion laws, and they inspired the women of Colombia, who then took up the green bandana, went in the streets, and they decriminalized abortion there just this February. This movement, this green wave, this symbol, imagine this being taken up on the stages from the biggest musicians to the smallest clubs, from all different sections of society, showing where they stand. Musicians, actors, performers of all kinds. I want you to imagine this green spreading, being a symbol that not just tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands, but literally millions of people in this country who hate what's coming, who fear what's coming, who are afraid to look at it because they don't see a way to fight it. Imagine they start seeing this green everywhere and start wearing it themselves. And you start to see, my God, we are legions. There are so many of us. It starts to embolden more action, civil disobedience, nonviolence, athletes speaking out and wearing the green on the court or on the field. Imagine this taking hold, and again and again and again and relentlessly. So unignorable, so visible, so powerful and righteous that it can be seen all over the world. We have the power to create a political situation, not where we win over the fascists on the court, but where they have to recognize, and even the fascists worry about things like this. They have to recognize that if they go forward with taking this right away in the face of that mass opposition, they will lose any shred of legitimacy for their institutions and their system in the eyes of millions and millions around this country and billions around the world. That is what could force them to recalculate. And we have that power. We have that power. That is the power of the people. They are powerful, but they are not all powerful, and they are not gods. They might wish they are, they might claim they're on a mission from God, but they are not gods. We have power too, but we are sleeping on our power. Our side is sleeping on its power. And we here today have to dare in a way that most people right now are not ready to and willing to, but we are going to struggle with them too. We need to dare, we need to think big, and we need to dare to bring alive their worst nightmare, which is an inflamed, righteous, uprising, furious, relentless, truth-telling, nonviolent, massive, sustained struggle that says no way.
So before we continue with Sunsara's speech, we're going to show you some film from the student walkouts on May 26 from around the country, and some of the bold actions that the students took, various die-ins. We're also going to show some of their voices speaking at these rallies and otherwise, and we're also going to show a little bit from Merle Hoffman, who's one of the leaders of the Rise Up for Abortion Rights movement with Sunsara Taylor. And then we'll come back, go right from there to another part of Sunsara's speech.
Overturn Roe? Hell no. Sights and sounds from May 26th.
There's a time when the
operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part.
You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the gears, upon the wheels, upon the apparatus.
And you've got to indicate to the people who own it, to the people who run it, that unless you're free,
that unless you're free,
the machine will be prevented from working at all.
In response to the call from RiseUp4AbortionRights.org to leave work, leave school, raise your voice and raise hell, no business as usual, students and supporters of abortion rights walked out, rallied and marched in the streets in over 20 cities across the country.
If I get raped, I don't want to have to carry a child to full term. What are you going to do about it? This country needs to come to a halt. We need to shut this country down.
In order to reach the Supreme Court, we need to emphasize the gravity of this situation to shut this country down.
The key message of these actions was voiced by Sunsara Taylor, a co-initiator of Rise Up and co-host of the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show on YouTube, at the Union Square rally in New York City.
This must be defeated. That draft decision must not be allowed to become the law. And this can be defeated. I am here today to say not only do we need to fight to stop this, we can win this.
A RiseUp4AbortionRights.org news release gave a sense of what took place on May 26th. They took over the Brooklyn Bridge. They marched through a Macy's and shut down Lakeshore Drive in Chicago. A march of green-clad abortion rights protesters crossed paths with black-gowned Harvard graduates just after noon Thursday in Harvard Square. An onlooker in New York tweeted, quote, "Just witnessed this brave bunch of kids stand up for their rights over their own bodies by blocking the Brooklyn Bridge." Another from his car tweeted, "Current situation, stuck at a standstill on the Brooklyn Bridge and not even mad about it." Stay tuned to the RiseUp4AbortionRights.org website for information on what comes next.
I said, the first thing that I'm fighting for is you, Skylar, and your generation, generations of women and girls that will come after you. And I do want to say I'm proud and I feel privileged to be in this place at this time, in this moment, and to be able to meet this challenge, because this is really a time that we have to practice courage, because it has to be practiced. So I thank so much. I thank all of you for being here. And this is a struggle. This is a hard thing to do. But I feel a degree of hope and courage and joy, in a sense, of seeing that this call is being answered. And people are saying, yes, I'm not just going to go with the herd. I'm not just going to, run with the regular propaganda and comments, because these are women's and girls' lives. And we have taken on that responsibility. We have taken on that power. So let's use it well, and let's understand that we're all in it for the very long, difficult struggle and time. We do have a goal. We're working towards that goal. But what I'm saying is that in order to reach it, we have to become what we're talking about. So once again, and to have joy. So once again, thank you for all you for coming, and I hope to see you on the streets.
And another key ingredient I want us to take stock in that we have on our side, that they can never have. What we have on our side, and we have seen it, and it has been so beautiful and so inspiring. It's still microcosm, but we need to scale it up. We have seen the power of the fury, the righteous fury of women and girls rising up at this violence inflicted on them, threatened against them by the state, and rising up and uncorking what has been a suppressed burning rage, simmering inside the hearts and the minds of generations of women and girls over centuries over millennia at the way they've been treated as less than, treated as punching bags, treated as baby making machines, treated as sex objects, treated as things to be pimped out, beaten down, disrespected, discounted. And this fury that has come out, and we've seen it, and the young people have talked about it, how righteous, how enlivening it is to be out there and have a place to put their fury, and it's infectious. And many of you watching know what I'm talking about, because that's why you are here. Because you have felt this fury and you have found a place for it. And this is a force that can wake up millions. There is a fury seething in the hearts of millions and millions of women and girls that we need to call forward with our daring, with our clarity, and we need to call that forward from everybody who loves justice. And that's a strength on our side that they fear, and we must not underestimate. So I am here to say, and we are here to work on together, we are on a mission to stop them from going forward. And if we do this, if we bring alive this vision that I'm talking about, which is very realizable, because most people don't want to see this happen. We've all read the polls. We all know this. Most people don't want women forced to have children against their will. Most people know that's barbaric, a 12-year-old raped by her uncle and forced by the state to have a child against their will. Most people know that's wrong. We can wake them up and move them to act. That is what we have the power to do. Okay. And that's our mission. And if we do that, we could back them up. And if we fail to back them up, but we have brought forward this kind of struggle, we will be in a stronger position to fight forward if they go ahead and take away Roe v. Wade and take away abortion rights. Because if you have an aroused and inflamed, righteously standing up people, and they are punched in the nose by an illegitimate fascist assault on the lives of and bodies and very humanity of half of society, then that is seen as illegitimate, and it can inspire greater struggle and resistance. But if you lie down and let them take this without a fight, it will lead to greater demoralization and defeat. And we are going to have a fight on our hands either way. So the sooner we get started, the sooner we raise our sights, and the more daring we are, the stronger position we're going to be in.
So that was a powerful beginning to the summit from Sunsara Taylor, and we're back now. And I wanted to ask you, Sunsara, look, this decision could come down could come down next week. Most likely we got just a couple of weeks or a few weeks, maybe as many as 5, but this is coming very, very soon. So time is racing ahead. How is Rise Up for Abortion Rights going to prepare for the kind of struggle that you were calling for, of millions of people in the street, bringing things to a halt to stop the Supreme Court from overturning Roe versus Wade?
Well, I think it's very important what this movement has accomplished, the stand we have put forward, the awareness we have brought to this question, the fury, as I spoke about, of the young women and girls and others that has been brought forward in this movement. But it has to go to a whole other level right now. And as you say, time is ticking. So this is a moment. This really is a moment for people who care about the future to search their souls and their conscience and find the ways to act with the greatest impact that will command and electrify the national attention. Find ways to act with boldness, with daring, non-violently, but really putting it on the line and modeling the kind of determined refusal to let society go forward as women's rights are ripped away from them and history is hurled backwards. So this is a time, really, we've used the quote from Mario Savio, the student leader in the free speech movement from Berkeley, that he delivered in 1964. We've used it on this show before, but I think it has great pertinence right now. There is a time when the operation of the machine becomes so odious, makes you so sick at heart that you can't take part. You can't even tacitly take part. And you've got to put your body upon the gears, the levers, and the apparatus, and you've got to make it stop. And you've got to indicate to the people who own it, the people who run it, that unless you're free, the machine will be prevented from working at all. And people have to find the ways to manifest this orientation in ways that cannot be ignored, that have to command the attention of the whole country and inspire and call forward that kind of daring and courage and mass nonviolent acts of courage and defiance and resistance nationwide in very short order.
This is something that we have to break out into society in a very compressed time period. And there are ways to do that. I think I agree exactly with what you said, and have thought a lot about that quote from Mario Savio. We have to find the places where the attention of society is focused and actually get into that space and in determined ways put out the call to the millions of people who are concerned about this, worried about this, and the millions of other people who it hasn't quite yet hit. So we have to bring to them just how odious this is going to be and the need to act now. And those who have come forward, the thousands who have come forward so far, need to put their creativity and their courage and their conviction on the line so that millions of people over the next couple of weeks start getting out in the street week after week. So Sunsara, at the summit, there were plans that were made. I wonder if you could give our audience a sense of the basic plans that people agreed to carry forward.
Yeah, so at this summit, we had the presentations, you saw some of them, but then people got into breakouts and really workshopped ideas. How do we take this fight forward? And so the students and youth are finding the ways to continue where the campuses are still in session, the walkouts that they've done with green. And this weekend, there are plans across the country, and everybody should take part in this, to get out and green up and really have contingents of people, gatherings of people, whatever size, as big as possible, but any size, slather themselves in green and go out to where there's nightlife, where there's clubs, where there's outside dining, where there's bars, where there's music, and going through with the green and confronting people, letting people know what it's about, spreading the green to them, getting them to put it on their social media, challenging people. Are you going to stand with this or stand aside? This green needs to become known everywhere. And then on Monday, June 6th, there's a plan for disruptive die-ins. Overturn Roe over our dead bodies. Disruptive die-ins. And there was brainstorming of all kinds of ways that this could happen, that could gum up the workings, disrupt the business as usual. And just people could be very creative with this. Nonviolent disruptive die-ins that are part of bringing the gears of society to a halt and calling forward others in many different ways. And beyond this, I have to say, we will be posting more at the RiseUp4AbortionRights.org website. And people need to get creative, and people need to be daring, and people need to be bold, and people need to think about the lives that are at stake, the future that is at stake, the sacrifice that will come of millions of women and girls, and the suffocation that this will put over society if this is allowed to be overturned. Abortion rights are allowed to be ripped away. And people have to find the ways non-violently to put it on the line and take the necessary risk and act with the necessary courage and boldness to force this question and the need for everybody to act to stop it in front of the eyes of the world. And this is a time for that kind of courage and daring. And so I want to end, yes, with the particular plans that came out, but also the invitation and the challenge to all of us that these are part of the picture, but we need a lot more, and everybody needs to be part of carrying this forward very urgently.
Well, that is an extremely important message, Sunsara. And, people might ask the question, why have we devoted so much attention to this and so much of the show to this? Because, as you've put it in your speech, and previous speeches, and in all the segments we've done, this is going to shape the future for half of humanity, and reality, because it does contain half of humanity and many other people who are impacted by this. It actually impacts the whole society, and whether or not there's going to be a movement of people fighting for the interests of humanity, or whether or not we're going to capitulate to a really horrible future. And we're going to close this whole segment off with a commentary from one of our co-members of the Refuse Fascism editorial board, Paul Street, who's going to be going into 6 of the reasons that the Democrats and the official women's movement give to not actually fight to stop the Supreme Court from overturning Roe versus Wade and the right to abortion. So with that, Sunsara, it was good to see you again, and we'll have you on next week again.
Andy, it's really good to see you.
All right. Good night. Before we get to Paul Street, there's this. In 2018, Bob Avakian, the revolutionary leader, gave an awesome speech titled, Why We Need an Actual Revolution and How We Can Really Make Revolution. So next we're going to play an excerpt from one question during the Q&A that followed the speech in one city with Bob Avakian. And the question that was asked was about how do we build up the fighting spirit of people against the fascist regime. Bob Avakian's answer in 2018 remains highly relevant and provides crucial guidance to the struggle that is urgently needed right now to stop the Supreme Court from taking away the right to abortion and beating back this fascist assault on women.
Well, I think one of the things about, any serious movement, and certainly a revolutionary movement, is it has to be very bold. Nobody's going to be attracted to something, if you're saying that you want to change the whole world, you want to go up against the whole system, but you come off as if you're, kind of conservative. it's not going to really come across to people as real. If you, in other words, by conservative, I mean if you're kind of like always playing by the rules and, always playing it close to the vest. Now, let me be clear. We should not be reckless. I talked about the fact that there's going to be sacrifice, but we should really not have unnecessary losses and sacrifices. But you do have to take risks to change the world, and certainly you have to take risks to make a revolution. And you do have to be bold if you want to capture the imagination of people, even people, as you were saying, in the coming from the middle classes, let alone people who are catching hell every day. You got to be bold, and we have to find ways to be out there really being bold. And I think I think this is great. This incivility that's going on. All this talk about civility. Well, yes, it's true. History has proven over and over again that if you're very civil toward fascists and you don't do anything to upset or anger them, they won't do anything bad. History has proven that over and over again, right? No. They're going to do what they're going to do, and they're only too happy to have you roll over and play dead and be civil with them so that they can keep right on doing what they're doing with less obstacles in the way. So the people who understand that now need to be very bold, not only in getting that message out, but without being reckless, also be very bold and act in what they do, in their actions. What you do as well as what you say has to be consistent with what you recognize and what you say the actual risks and stakes are of this situation. That's my point about coming off conservative, as if you're conservative. If you say things are very extreme, the dangers are very great, the risks are very high, but then you act as if that's not the case, then there's even less chance people are going to take you seriously. So you have to, in everything we do, we have to challenge people, not stupidly, not in an infantile manner, not in a way that just sort of needlessly and gratuitously insults people, but in a way that challenges them, in a way that both challenges and provokes and inspires them. And that goes for everything. That goes for building this mass movement to drive out this regime through nonviolent but sustained massive protest. And it goes for the whole revolution and building that revolution. You have to be acting in a way that's consistent with what you say the problem and the solution is, and not in a way that contradicts it and makes people think that you don't really believe it. So I think there needs to be a lot more of, a lot of times small things can contribute to big things eventually happening or happening even soon. It's not just one little thing adds up, but sometimes even smaller scale things can lead to this, geometric or whatever you want to call it, exponential growth, where things grow by leaps and bounds because people get provoked and inspired, and all of a sudden the dam breaks. What we need to be working for is the dam to break. There are tens of millions of people who are really upset and angry about this, And they do come out, they came out around the immigrant children. They do come out around different things. But the dam hasn't broken to where they say, to hell with playing by the rules here. And to hell with listening to the Democratic Party insist that we have to play by the rules and be civil. We've got to take to the streets. The ways have to be found to both challenge and provoke as well as inspire them to actually act on that and keep going at it in different ways until that dam breaks and they do actually bring their own actions in line with with their sentiments, which has not yet happened.
Next, we're going to have Paul Street, who is a member of the editorial board of Refuse Fascism. Paul's an author. His latest book is This Happened Here, Americanas, Neoliberals, and the Trumping of America. Paul writes regularly for the online publication Counterpunch. And he had, on May 25th, he published an article titled, Only Mass Protests Can Save Abortion Rights. So, Paul Street, I'm glad to have you back on the RNL show. How are you?
I'm okay, Andy.
Good, good.
Thanks for having me back. Yeah.
You're coming to us from Chicago, right?
You betcha. Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, good. So, Paul, this latest article, The Approach of the Democratic Party and Leading Establishment Pro-Choice Organizations, you say, are engaged in active surrender. They're giving up on Roe versus Wade without a major fight in the streets, schools, workplaces, and public squares, and that this is unconscionable. This is a point we've been making on the RNL show for some time, but I thought that it would be important for you to take this article, which gives 6 reasons or 6 excuses that they give for not waging this fight, and if you would just do a short commentary for the RNL show on these 6 reasons, that would be, I think, very important for our audience to have at their fingertips. Okay, this is why these people aren't fighting against or fighting to stop the Supreme Court from overturning Roe versus Wade.
With the Supreme Court poised to undo Roe v. Wade and thereby reimpose the female bondage of forced motherhood, any Monday now, we must reject the approach of the Democratic Party, elites, and establishment pro-choice organizations. They are giving up on Roe in advance without a major fight in the streets and public squares, and that is unconscionable. A judgment reversing Roe is inevitable, they say. Look at the court's composition, they say. Look at Justice Alito's draft decision. There's nothing really that can be done about it. Bullshit. If millions take to the streets and engage in mass demonstrations now, understanding that it is much harder to win back a lost right than to keep an existing one, the court can be swayed. It can be moved by its realization that reversing Roe will cause irreparable damage to its institutional legitimacy and lead to a disruption of business as usual. Look at the bright side, some Democrats tell us. The reversal of Roe will help us in the November midterm elections. Wow. Besides sounding like a cynical embrace of Roe's reversal, this is wishful thinking. Right-wing gerrymandering, right-wing voter suppression, and the extreme right-wing malapportionment of the U.S. Senate will combine with inflation and the dismal performance of the bumbling neoliberal President Joe Biden to make a Republican take-back of Congress a near certainty this fall. But how much difference would it make if the Democrats kept Congress? Even then, it is unlikely that they would do what would be required to reinstate abortion rights. That's just not how Biden and his party roll. He and his fellow corporate imperial Democrats constantly seek common ground with the Republicans on abortion and on numerous other key issues, and they will continue on that path of impeachment. Don't get so historical, Democrats tell us. Remember, they say, in a post-Roe America, abortion will still be legal in half of the states. Oh, really? So too effing bad for women and girls in half the country. Too bad for females stuck in red states where social policy runs far, far to the right of national public opinion, which has supported women's right to an abortion by at least 2-to-1 for more than half a century. Many Democrats seem to think that the war on abortion is just a red state thing. It isn't. It's a national movement with many blue state allies and forces, and with the path to full Republican national power being cleared with help from the dismal, dollar-drenched, demobilizing Democrats, the Republican fascists are going for a national abortion ban in 2025. Don't get so agitated, some pro-choice Democrats tell us. Big blue states like New York and California will respond to Roe's reversal by becoming abortion sanctuary states. They'll expand facilities and raise funds to run a modern-day abortion underground railroad. Please, busing, flying, driving, lodging, and treating girls and women across untold millions of miles in a time of escalating costs. This is a vastly expensive undertaking. It will not meet the need, especially when it comes to disproportionately non-white, poor women and girls. And to make matters worse, red states are already moving to make it illegal for people to leave their home states for abortions and for people in other states to help them. The Christian fascist anti-abortion movement is a dedicated national force. It has no intention of letting an underground national abortion railroad flourish. And meanwhile, red state legislators and governors are working to make abortion medication pills criminal. Texas has already banned sending abortion medications by mail, and the reversal of Roe will lead other red states to do the same. A Republican-ruled nation will launch a national war on abortion drugs. Well, okay, pro-choice Democrats finally say, you've got to vote. This is a democracy, and voting is how majorities get heard. When you have the vote, like Obama likes to say, you have the power. And if you don't like the court's decision, you can vote. This is laughable. This is insulting on one issue after another. You name it, guns, climate, abortion. Majority opinion in this country is trumped in the American electoral so-called democracy. Part of the reason for this is the extraordinary influence and power of concentrated wealth. Another part is the undemocratic minority rule nature of the U.S. constitutional setup, which drastically overrepresents the nation's most reactionary, racist, fundamentalist, gun-worshiping, women-hating sections. And the decisions of the court are not subject to a popular vote. Republican fascists across the nation, meanwhile, are passing measures to suppress votes and even to cancel elections that don't go their way. Name the modern social reform that merits applause and deserves defense in American history. The outlawing of child labor, the minimum wage, union organizing rights, legal desegregation, Social Security, environmental protections, consumer protections. None of these things were gained simply by voting. They were won through mass popular resistance and disruption, strikes, marches, sit-ins, sit-downs, occupations, work stoppages, social movements, and movement cultures beneath and beyond the quadrennial, big money, major party, candidate-centered, electoral extravaganzas that are sold to us again and again as quote-unquote politics, the only politics that matters. The right to an abortion was won through mass resistance led by feminists in the 60s and 70s. The freaking franchise itself, the vote, was only won through mass popular disturbance. This is American and indeed world history 101. It's not just about who's sitting in the White House, the courts, the legislators, and the suites. It's about who's sitting in the public squares, the town halls, the workplaces, and the streets. If you want to stop the autocratic re-enslavement of women and girls in this so-called democracy, you must wear green. You must get militant. You must get yes revolutionary right now, not later, right now, before and not after the coming decision, which is any Monday this month. This is happening now. Resistance, mass resistance must happen now.
Thanks, Paul. That was an important, concise presentation of some of the reasons, 6 of the reasons that the Democrats and the official women's movement give for not really pulling out all the stops over the next few weeks. And I appreciated how much you gave focus to that. This could happen in any Monday this month. Right up to the 4th of July. And then that's all the time we've got. And so I think it's very important that we're really trying to hammer home to our audience, this is the time for people to act. So with that, Paul, we're going to have you back on the show and, just be well. And we'll talk to you again soon on the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, great. Our final segment today is a statement from the Revolution Club in Chicago that's read by Noche Diaz, who's the national spokesperson for the Revolution Clubs nationally. This is a statement that the Revolution Club in Chicago issued when a 16-year-old Seandell Holliday was killed downtown at a major city park in Chicago. He was only 16 years old. The article is titled, "To All Those Who Fear They Won't Make It to 21."
Last Saturday, May 28th, people gathered in Chicago's South Side to celebrate the life and loss of Seandell Holliday. Seandell was a young man with big dreams. A drummer, he wanted to make his own music and open his own studio. "If I make it to 21, he added, to a list of 10 goals he had drawn up at his school. His teacher asked him why he added this, and Seandell said, "There's so many things that happen in Chicago that you can die at any point at any day." And on May 14th, Seandell, 16 years old, was shot and killed at the Bean, an art installation with a mirror-like surface and a major tourist attraction in downtown Chicago's Millennium Park. It was a beautiful day and still light outside. Instead of capturing the clouds in the sky, the Bean mirrored the blood pooling around Seandell's lifeless body. A truer reflection of Chicago. Seandell's mother despaired. Quote, "The one time I let him go out, he gets killed. He doesn't go outside, he never goes outside. And the one time he goes outside, he gets killed." The mayor responded by taking drastic measures to protect the city's crown jewel. Did she mean the youth, so full of energy and life, that she would take steps to ensure their happiness and their ability to go out and have a good time and enjoy each other's company? No. The mayor imposed a curfew. Unaccompanied minors could not be in Millennium Park after 6 p.m., Thursday through Sunday. Citywide, a curfew was imposed for 10 p.m. unless young people could show evidence that they were at a ticketed event. The mayor made it clear. The Bean is a major attraction, and the downtown area has to be protected for business and tourism. Those who rule over this society have no answers except to brutally clamp down and pen Black and Latino youth into oppressed, apartheid-like neighborhoods and encouraging them to kill each other in order to keep going a system that has no prospect of a decent life for them. Youth come up in a world with no hope for the future and with parents who fear to let them out the house. Earlier in May, Bob Avakian, B.A., revolutionary leader and author of The New Communism, spoke to what we hear all the time from youth, including youth just like Seandell, who say, "We got no future and we're gonna die young anyway." B.A. says, "It is true, of course, that everyone is going to die at some point. Right now, it is true that far too many are dying way too young and for no good reason or purpose. It is true that for masses of humanity, not just in this country but around the world, life is already a living hell. While for humanity as a whole, there is no future worth living in or no future at all under this system. And that is just the point. We need to get rid of this system, overthrow it, and replace it with a radically different and much better system. And what is not true is that nothing can be done about all this. There is no reason, no permanent necessity for this capitalist imperialist system of oppression, plunder, and destruction to just go on and on. And there is a way we can put an end to it and replace it with a radically different and much better system, an emancipating system. To do this, we need a revolution, a real revolution. That is something worth dedicating your life to and putting your life on the line for. BA goes on. This is one of those rare times when revolution becomes more possible, even in a powerful country like this. We cannot afford to waste this rare opportunity, condemning people just like ourselves everywhere to the continuing hell of this system. And BA concludes, yes, at some point we are all going to die. But how we live and what our lives are dedicated to, what we are willing to fight for and put our lives on the line for, makes all the difference. I have said it many times, and it is profoundly true. Revolution is the hope of the hopeless. And dedicating one's life to revolution is the greatest thing anyone can do with their life. Become part of this revolution. Become part of and bring forward many more to join the emancipators of humanity. This is from Revolution, Hope of the Hopeless by Bob Avakian. The Revolution Club is dedicated to making this real, including in Chicago, as part of a national movement for revolution. To find out more, go to revcom.us and tune in every week, Thursday, to the RNL, Revolution Nothing Less show on YouTube.
So that brings us to the end of episode number 104 of the RNL Revolution Nothing Less show. We'll see you next week. But before we go, spread today's show to your friends and to people you work with and go to school with. And also go back to episode number 100, which launched a campaign to spread this show and support this show among thousands of people. And we'll see you next Thursday night at 5 p.m. Pacific time and 8 p.m. New York time, 7 p.m. Central time. Good night.